Hi everyone, welcome to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Lord Jesus is coming. Every day we are seeing some of the great signs that are happening around us.
In this episode, we are going to see some of the disastrous events that are taking place around the world.
Residents of Beirut woke up to an apocalyptic scene on August the 5th, 2020, the morning after a massive explosion ripped through the city, killing at least 100 people and wounding thousands.
Around 6 p.m. on August 4, 2020, a warehouse adjacent to the waterline at the port of Beirut exploded, creating 3.5 magnitude earthquake felt over 150 miles away in the Cyprus. Footage of the blast showed a huge shockwave emanating from the port that flipped over cars and hollowed out nearby buildings.
Lebanese Interior Minister Mohamed Fahmy told the local TV station that it appeared the blast was caused by the detonation of more than 2,700 metric tons of ammonium nitrate, which had been stored in a warehouse at the dock ever since it was confiscated from a cargo ship in 2014. By comparison to metric tons of ammonium nitrate were used in the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. The explosion in Lebanon was 1,000 times more powerful, equivalent to the use of half a kiloton of TNT. According to Beirut Governor Marwan Aboud, damage from the blast reached half of the entire city. Initial estimates put the damage at $15 billion with 300,000 people homeless, 15% of the city's population. Beirut is a disaster city and the scale of the damage is enormous. Aboud told reporters, saying the blast was a national disaster akin to Hiroshima. The explosion couldn't come to a worse time for Lebanon. Since the end of its civil war in 1990, it continues to face multiple challenges. The nation is facing unprecedented economic collapse, with its currency losing 85% of its value in the past year. More than half the population is now in poverty, food scarcity, and rolling blackouts are common across the nation. Lebanon typically imports 80% of its needs, including food and fuel, and most of that came into the port of Beirut. Added to that, the explosion was adjacent to huge grain soils that were said to have held 85% of the national's grain. Lebanon's Minister of Economy and Trade told Straight-Run News that all the wheat stored at the facility was now contaminated and could not be used. However, he said that Lebanon will have what it needs for the immediate future. Initial reporting on the explosion indicates that this was not an attack by a foreign power. It was caused by a fire that produced enough heat to detonate the massive storm of ammonium nitrate often used for explosions in the mining industry. The ammonium nitrate arrived at the port in the late 2013 or by early 2014 when the Russian-owned cargo vessel Rosos were forced to dock in Beirut after facing technical problems at sea. The incident was described by lawyers representing the boat's crew in the October 2015 issue of the Arrest News. Owing to the risk associated with retaining the ammonium nitrate on board the vessel, the port authorities discharged the cargo onto the port's warehouses. However, storing the volatile material at the port worried port authorities. 6 separate appeals were made by the customer officials to the Lebanese government from June 2014 through October 2017 to remove the ammonium nitrate. Timur Azari quoted one of these letters stating, "In the view of serious danger of keeping these goods in the hangar in unsuitable climatic condition, we reaffirm our request to please request the Marine Agency to re-export these goods immediately to preserve the safety of the ports and those working on it, or to look into agreeing to sell this amount to the Lebanese Explosives Company." And yet, 3 years after the letter was sent, the explosive material was still in the hangar. Given the obvious paper trail of repeated requests of port authorities to remove the ammonium nitrate, it is only a matter of time before Lebanese turn from the immediate rescue operations to finding out whose neglectful or purposeful mismanagement led to the substance remaining at the port. Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab promised that all those responsible for the catastrophe will pay the price. President Michael Aoun called the failure to deal with the ammonium nitrate unacceptable and vowed the harshest punishment for those responsible.
We have seen many disastrous things happening around us, but there is more. Don't go anywhere. We'll meet you after a short break. Welcome back to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Lord Jesus is coming. Before the break, we were seeing about many disastrous things happening around us. Now, let's continue. An investigation into the explosion has been launched and is due to give its findings to the Lebanese judiciary within the next 5 days.
Clearly, someone with the government decided to leave volatile bomb making ingredients at the port. While no direct link to Hezbollah, the Lebanese terrorist organization turned political party, are yet to surface, many Lebanese are alluding to its role.
Certainly, holding the ammonium nitrate at the port would make it easier for Hezbollah to ship large quantities of the bomb-making materials where it wanted. Both Israel and the United States have said previously that Hezbollah controls much of the Beirut port facilities. Curiously, soon after the shipment ship was confiscated, Israel's Mossad agency began tipping foreign governments on increased Hezbollah's actions involving ammonium nitrate. According to the Times of Israel, the Mossad learned in 2014 that Hezbollah's Foreign Operations Group Unit 910 was developing the means to launch terror attacks around the world. This led to a bunch of failed plots in 2015. In May 2015, Chypriot authorities found 9 tons of ammonium nitrate in a Larnaca home. Hezbollah paid a Lebanese man over $10,000 to guard the material, which it planned to use to target Israeli interests in Cyprus. In August 2015, Kuwaiti authorities arrested 3 Hezbollah operatives who had stored 42,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate in residential houses. British authorities discovered 3 tons of ammonium nitrate in a Hezbollah-run bomb-making facility in the outskirts of London. The compound was stashed in thousands of disposable ice packs. Then in 2019, the Mossad reportedly gave Germany information about warehouses in the south of the country where Hezbollah stashed hundreds of kilograms of ammonium nitrate. The discovery in part led to Germany banning the organization from the nation. And in 2017, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said that the terrorist group could see ammonium nitrate in a potential attack against Haifa, Israel's port city in the north. Even without taking the blame for the explosion, Hezbollah is facing increasing calls from the demise in Lebanon. Given the sectarian divisions within the country and the way that Lebanese constitution drives our power, the Shiite Hezbollah has an amplified say in running the nation. By virtue of its alliances with other groups, Hezbollah have been able to virtually dominate Lebanese policy for the past decade. The result had been chronism, mismanagement, and increasing fight of foreign capital, as the typical backers of Lebanon, such as the Gulf states, do not want to fund an Iranian proxy. This resulting economic downturn led to the almost year-long Lebanese protests, which increasingly took an anti-Hezbollah tone. Foreign nations, as well as the International Monetary Fund, are ready to provide Lebanon with a massive aid pack. But that money is conditional upon Lebanon accepting fundamental changes to its system, which will curtail Hezbollah's power. Hezbollah has refused to make their adjustment, then preventing aid money from getting to the state and to the people, and on to the people. On July 2020, Bashara el-Rai, Lebanon's patriarch of the Maronite Church, which represents 40% of Lebanon's population, began speaking out against Hezbollah. Today, Lebanon has become isolated from the world, he stated on July 14. This is not our identity. Our identity is positive and constructive neutrality, not a warrior Lebanon. Some comments were clearly interpreted to be against Hezbollah's violence acts interfering in foreign nations. Rai's comments are significant because many Maronite politicians have abated Hezbollah's rise to power inside government. President On is a Maronite Christian, but his alliance with Hezbollah has largely stalled an economic help from the outside world. Rai's comments are a loud warning to On and the other Christian leaders that Maronite population wants to be independent rather than aligned with Hezbollah. Even before the Beirut explosion, it was going to be a bad week for Hezbollah in Lebanon. On August 7, 2020, the verdict for the 2005 assassination of former Prime Minister Rafi Hariri is to be announced. The trial had begun on January 16, 2014, will almost certainly find 4 Hezbollah members guilty of Hariri's murder. Hariri's death means almost as much as today it did 15 years ago. While Prime Minister Hariri envisioned the establishment of a truly independent Lebanese government without the intrusion of Iran or Syria, he was candid about his desire to remove Syrian interference from within the government. He also called for the ouster of Syrian forces, which had been occupying the country since 1967. His assassination was the event that thrust Lebanon into action to rid the nations of Syrian influence, which became known as the Cedar Revolution. But the exit of the Syrian troops and the pro-Syrian government did nothing to bring about an independent Lebanon. Instead, as is now increasingly obvious, Lebanon has been entirely subject to Hezbollah and through Hezbollah, Iran. In the aftermath of the blast that ripped through Beirut, a verdict finding Hezbollah guilty of the murder of Lebanon's much-loved prime minister could fully ignite Lebanon into a second civil war. The big difference between the Cedar Revolution and now is that Hezbollah fighters are not Syrian. They are Lebanese. They have nowhere to retreat to, so would have to put up a fight. And with Hezbollah's military arsenal larger than some countries, the war would be devastating.
Before his death, burial, and resurrection, the Lord Jesus Christ was sitting on the Mount of Olives, and his disciples came to him privately and asked, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" Further, the Lord Jesus Christ lists out things that will take place before his coming.
And Jesus answered and said to them, "And you will hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows."
All this shows that what is mentioned in the Bible that are going to take place in the end times are taking place in our lifetime. We are living in the last days. Lord Jesus Christ is coming again very soon. Thank you for watching this episode. Don't forget to tune into Science Lab next time.
Before we end the show, we'd like to ask you a question. What was the chemical that caused the explosion in the Lebanese capital of Beirut? Option A, ammonium sulfate. Option B, ammonium phosphate. And option C, ammonium nitrate.
Send us your correct answers to our email ID sciencelab@angeltv.org. If you have missed any of the episode, don't worry, you can watch it again and again in our Science Lab YouTube page. But don't forget to like, share and comment on this video.
Ask your friends and relatives to watch the Science Lab so that they will know that we are living in the last days. Remember, signs are happening because Lord Jesus is coming.
Maranatha.
Maranatha.